I believe you're a quorum.
I count 9. Oh, nope. There we go, 10. I'd love to see if we could get to 11. I think we just did. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome all once again. You're at the July cycle meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5's Transportation and Environment Committee. I'm the chair, EJ Kalifarski. Welcome. Tonight we have 4 items on our agenda. The way each of these items is going to work is we'll start by hearing a introduction or presentation by a member of the committee and or an applicant or a member or a representative of an agency who will present and introduce whatever the topic is. At that point, members of the Transportation Environment Committee will have the opportunity to ask any questions of the presenter. Following that, for each topic, we will open things up for members of the public who are in attendance to either ask questions or make comments on that particular application or topic. We'll ask, in particular, that members of the public try to limit your comments to 2 minutes so we can tackle all 4 items on the agenda very efficiently. Finally, after that, the committee will go into its business session. For each topic, when the committee is in its business session, only members of the committee are permitted to speak, and we will decide at that point what, if any, action to take as a committee for the evening. And that'll be the way we'll proceed on each topic this evening. Again, I said we had 4 items on the agenda this evening. Some of them are somewhat heavy topics, and so we're going to try and tackle all of them as efficiently as possible. And we're going to do them in an order that'll let us knock out first the item that I believe will be short and probably our only voting item of the evening. And that will be an application for a hotel no standing zone at 25 West 28th Street for the Ritz Carlton Nomad Hotel. This is an application that was also on our agenda last month, but because at the time the topic came up during our meeting, a representative from the hotel was not on, it got delayed until this month. With that, we will jump into this topic again. Is a representative from the hotel here with us tonight?
Yes, I'm the Director of Security, Sean Singh. I'm representing.
Hi, Sean.
Yeah.
Great. I'm gonna ask our committee member Jean to quickly refresh the committee on this item so that we know what we're talking about, and so Jean can bring us up to speed on the diligence that has been done so far, and then we'll turn things over to you, Sean, to give us a brief overview of this request.
Thank you.
Jean?
Hello, thank you. I just was reviewing the notes between Noah and I from last month. So the Ritz-Carlton Hotel is on 28th and Broadway's new construction. And the applicant is asking for a no standing zone from the western edge of the property on 28th Street over to Broadway. The hotel has 250 rooms of occupancy, 16 residential units, 2 restaurants on the ground level, 1 fine dining restaurant on the 2nd floor, a rooftop bar, and a full service spa. Additionally, the residents will also be using the Broadway entrance to come and go from the hotel. So we mostly clarified that, and we also had the images from the posting for the community board meeting were sent to us. The only question that we asked in addition to that was if the hotel was aware of any historical access to street vendors or food trucks in the area that might have been there before construction, and if they had plans to reach out to them or refoster those relationships. And the hotel informed us that they did not have plans to work with any such vendors.
Okay, thanks, Gene. And just so just to refresh my memory, hotels with 100 or more rooms are usually granted a no standing zone by DOT by default. I believe in this case, the reason why that wasn't done automatically is because the entrance is shared with private residences. Is that accurate?
Hi, it's Colleen from DOT. That's accurate. That's why we request that the applicant come before the community board to get a resolution.
Okay.
And just so you know, we did review it, and we are fine with allowing 2 spaces, 40 feet, for the hotel loading zone on 28th Street.
All right. Thanks for that context, Colleen. And thank you, Gene. So with that context, Sean, please go ahead. Let us know any other material that you think we should know about this request from the hotel.
Well, that's accurate. We are requesting the no loading zone, no standing zone in front of the hotel, the main entrance. And also additionally, we know the residents will be utilizing the Broadway entrance as well. So we were hoping to sort of have some access or loading zone on the Broadway side of the hotel as well, if that's possible.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit at the end there. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes. The residents will be utilizing both entrances, the main entrance on 28th Street, and as well as the side entrance on Broadway, 1185 Broadway. So we were hoping to have some concession on the Broadway side of the hotel as well, if that's possible.
And I'm sorry, by some kind of concession, you mean an additional no standing zone on the Broadway side?
Yes.
Okay, but DOT has not at this point recommended or endorsed that.
That's correct, Ed. And the reason why is because there's a garage there and there's also a restaurant there. So we do not recommend granting additional space on the Broadway side.
Okay, thanks, Colleen. And as far as on the 28th Street side, where the no standing zone recommendation is currently coming from DOT, can you, Sean, can you describe what, if any, mitigations are being taken to accommodate the fact that the entrance is going to be used by both the hotel and residents?
Exactly what we submitted. The only thing we requested, but it's going to be the courtyard and the plaza as well. We have in place as recommended additional signage and cones to mitigate any type of traffic coming out. The train station is there, so we have to accommodate all foot traffic coming into the hotel as well. But what we're trying to do, I know we're getting 40 feet. We were hoping, for 3 buses, if that's possible, to allow for other limousines and cars or taxis pulling up in front of the hotel.
I see. Okay. Well, thanks for explaining that. Generally speaking, what we do is we take a recommendation from DOT and we assess that and determine whether or not to lend our support to the DOT recommendation, or if there's, for example, overwhelming evidence that a modification that's suggesting a modification would be appropriate, we could take that position. We'll have to see what the sense of the committee is, but appreciate your context and request. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we jump into questions, Sean?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee about this application? Obviously, as we've heard, we have a recommendation from DOT for a 2-car length no standing zone on 28th Street. And as Colleen mentioned, there's a garage on Broadway, which is why they don't currently recommend a no standing zone at the Broadway entrance.
Great. And Ed, the regulation would be no standing hotel loading zone, just so you know.
No, got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions from members of the committee? Going once. Okay, not seeing any. I will open things up to members of the public who are in attendance. If any members of the public have a comment or a question, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom right now so we can see how many comments we're going to be getting. Please try to limit your comment or question to 2 minutes. I see one. Charles, you have the first comment.
Yes, I would like to know how the applicant is going to ensure that vehicles such as delivery trucks are not going to use that no standing. That's only going to be for picking up pedestrians, and how to avoid any parallel parking. And did the applicant say they're using cones to cone off the no standing zone? I might have misheard or misunderstood.
Sean, would you like to address that?
Yes, that's correct. The loading zone and delivery will be on Broadway, 1185 Broadway. So there will be no double parking on the 28th Street side of the main entrance.
And are you guys using cones to cone off the no standing zone?
Currently, we will be, but once the signage has been erected, we will be removing the cones, but we will have it in case of it necessitates any additional coning off of the area.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Charles. Not seeing any other questions or comments from members of the public. I'll check with the committee one more time. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Well, thanks, Sean, for answering those questions and for providing that context. The committee is going to go into its business session now. So if anything comes up that we need an answer for, I can recognize you explicitly to answer further questions. But at this point, we're going to bring the conversation into the committee and determine what action, if any, to take. So I'll open things up to the committee for comments. Obviously, what we heard tonight was a recommendation from DOT, as I said, for a 2-car length, no standing hotel loading zone on 28th Street only. Obviously, that is pretty standard for a hotel, and it's probably what they would have issued automatically if not for that shared resident situation. Obviously, the hotel seems to be asking for a longer hotel loading zone that can accommodate things like limousines, and also an additional hotel loading zone on Broadway. But I think a longer hotel loading zone would be quite out of the ordinary for a hotel like this. And as we heard about the garage on Broadway, it doesn't seem like an appropriate location for another loading zone, of which this would be one of them. This seems, to me at least, a pretty standard recommendation from DOT, and what they probably would have done anyway if not for that special residence situation. With that, I'd love to hear comments from the committee, starting with Nancy.
I support DOT's recommendation. It's not a wide, 28th Street is not a wide street, but Broadway is also neck down there, and it's highly congested. And as you know, this is the same area of Broadway where we had the recent accident. So we know it's a highly used avenue, and we want to limit the congestion that is already seeming to cause problems. So I would support DOT's recommendation.
Thanks, Nancy. Maki?
Thanks, CJ. I agree as well. I actually live quite close to that intersection, and having both the 28th Street side and Broadway would be quite a bit. On the Broadway side, there's also quite a bit of bicycle traffic as well as pedestrian traffic coming out of the subway station on both sides of the street. And then there's also restaurants adjacent to that area. So again, I would only support as DOT recommended on the 28th Street side.
Great, thanks, Maki. Any other comments from any members of the committee? I feel like we're starting to get a sense here of what we want to do. It seems like a pretty straightforward application, but if there are any other comments, speak now. All right. Not seeing any other comments at this point. You know, again, this seems pretty straightforward. Everyone who's spoken has spoken with pretty much unanimity. That being the case, I didn't entertain a motion from any members of the committee.
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second. Oh,
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the seconds. With that, we will take this to a vote. A resolution to support the DOT recommendation for this hotel loading zone. And we are voting. Starting with John. John Sedillo.
Yes, in favor of it.
Okay, thank you, John. Nancy. I didn't hear you, but I saw you mouth yes. Okay. Tristan.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
Maki.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Jean.
Yes.
BJ.
yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Janice.
Yes.
Is there anyone on the committee I missed? Okay, that resolution passes unanimously. I'd like to thank you to the applicant for coming in and answering our questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. With that, we will roll on to our second application of the, sorry, not application, but our second topic of the evening, which would be a presentation by the Department of Design and Construction on the 7th Avenue water main project that is planned from 34th to 14th Streets. Do we have representatives of the DDC with us?
Yes, this is Zoe from DDC Design. I'll be sharing the PowerPoints.
Great, thanks, Zoe. Yeah, you can go ahead and take it away. We thank you for joining us today. I'm not sure how long your presentation is.
It's very brief.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay.
Go for it.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us at this meeting to present the upcoming DDC project, MED 669. This is a distribution water main replacement project in the borough of Manhattan. I'm Zoe Wu. I'm the design engineer of this project, and I'm here with design engineer in charge, Mohammed Rahman, design executive director, Jorge Tua, as well as DDC program management and community outreach team. This project will replace the distribution water mains along the 7th Avenue between West 14th Street and West 34th Street, including the side streets between 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue, as highlighted on the map. This project is located in the Community Boards 4 and 5 neighborhoods, and the project areas within Community Board number 5 are boxed in red at the upper right of the map, which is from 26th Street to 34th Street between 6th and 8th Avenue. The existing distribution water main system along the 7th Avenue was installed in the late 1800s. It was discovered that the corridor has many defective valves, which may create water pressure and water quality problems when shut down. In order to improve the water distribution and fire protection in this area, this project will replace and upgrade about 36,000 linear feet of aging distribution water main, defective water main valves, and fire hydrants to reduce the water main breaks and service disruptions in the neighborhood. Shown on this slide is a typical plan for maintenance and protection of traffic. During construction, a minimum of 2 travel lanes will be maintained along the 7th Avenue, and a minimum of 1 travel lane will be maintained in the side streets. The sidewalks will remain accessible to pedestrians and businesses. At the lower right is the typical cross-section of 7th Avenue. The work area may be on either side of the roadway, depending on where the existing water main is located. At least 2 travel lanes will be open to traffic. Bikes and parking lanes will be maintained if they are not within the work area or needs to be used as temporary travel lanes. During the construction phase, the community will experience some impacts. There will be roadway lane closures and temporary loss of parkings as discussed in the previous slide. There will also be temporary relocation of bus stops, scheduled water main shutdowns, time and weekend construction hours, and coordinations with open restaurants. DDC's community construction liaisons will be keeping the community informed. They will address concerns, respond to inquiries, attend meetings as needed, and distribute project-related materials to keep the community informed and notified. This project is a fiscal year 2024 project. 40% final design was completed in February of this year, followed by the alignment meeting with the private utility companies in March. We anticipate completing the 75% final design by July of 2022, and the contract drawings will then be distributed to community boards. Final design completion is anticipated to be December of 2022. The expected start of construction is fall of 2023, and the estimated construction duration is 4 years. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that update and for its conciseness. We really appreciate it. For the context of the committee, as Zoe mentioned, this presentation was also provided to Community Board 4, I think merely like 2 nights ago. Additionally, our district manager has communicated with the Community Board 4 district manager. Our understanding is that Community Board 4 generated a letter where they listed some concerns that may be instructed to us as well. DDC has agreed to a joint bid with Con Ed, meaning that the Con Ed work will happen simultaneously rather than DDC having to wait each time a Con Ed issue is encountered during the project. CB4 also raised the need for asks for mitigations for businesses along the corridor, such as for signage, wayfinding, etc. We haven't been told that there's like budgeting for that kind of thing, but we understand that SBS will be trying to provide help to businesses, though we don't exactly know the nature of it. Other issues that CB4 simply raised as issues of concern were whether bike lanes will be relocated when, as the presentation mentioned, they are not exactly. For example, if the I believe it was mentioned that if the work zone overlaps the bike lane, that might not be there might not be a bike lane for that block during the duration of the work. They raised concerns about that. And temporary bike lanes, they raised concerns about daytime versus nighttime work hours. They raised concerns about staging areas, and they raised concerns about temporary versus permanent restoration of the blocks as the project progresses. Again, these are, I don't think they got answers on these. These are just areas of concern that they noted. The action that we can and likely could take tonight, if we want, is perhaps, if we have any of these concerns or additional concerns, we could issue a letter as well, raising them. That's one potential way to respond to an update like this from DDC. I wanted to give the committee that kind of context, but we very much appreciate the presentation. And with that, I'll throw things open to members of the committee. Do any members of the committee have any questions for DDC? We'll start with BJ.
Thank you, EJ. I think you highlighted one of the concern I had, which was the in language, but you said that signage was to be TBD depending on the budget. But along with that, the communications that you had mentioned, Zoe, that community outreach people will do, are those communications going to be at least in some sort of language that impacts those particular neighborhoods?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jorge. Nice to be in your community representation. Yes, our community liaison will present this to every week or bi-weekly in this type of letter that Zoe is presenting right now. Besides this information, I believe also our community liaisons also provide some type of website, email addresses where you can contact directly to them. Obviously, the office, the construction office will be in the area, in the neighborhood, in a place where everybody will know where the office will be, in such a way that during the daytime, when the office hours, you can go and ask any question, concern that you may have with the construction and during the construction.
Thank you. And I meant, is that going to be provided in languages, Spanish, Korean, Hindu, affecting that particular areas?
I see. Maria, are you in this meeting?
Hi, Jorge. This is Marlene Nunez from DDC Outreach. Good evening, everyone. The notices are provided in English. If there are language specific needs in various communities, then we can always work to provide those notifications in other languages. If that is something that is of a concern or a suggestion, then yes, please also let us know what languages may be needed and what areas of CV5 those should be provided in, please.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. It is a concern, and those are the languages, as I mentioned, Hindu, Spanish, Chinese, and Korean minimally.
Okay. And yes, as Jorge mentioned, there will be a liaison assigned to this project. The liaison provides weekly bulletins throughout the project, in addition to the community advisories, which are based on every impact that may be caused by the construction. And that is provided 72 hours before an impact starts and minimum 72 hours. The liaison will also attend the district service cabinet meetings with CV5 and maintain regular communication with all stakeholders throughout the project.
That would be great, especially with the new administration wanting to be very focused on DEI and recognizing that our New York City community is quite diverse, and the multiple languages and the whether it's small business owners, businesses, as well as residents who reside there. And if we all try to be mindful of DEI and be very inclusive, and especially with the language offering. Thank you.
Thank you for that too.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was still on mute that time. Next question will be, thank you all for those answers. And next question will be Maki.
Thanks, CJ. I wanted to ask if there's any special considerations being made for the fact that Madison Square Garden and Penn Station is at the very top of that area that's in CB5's district, and also if the planned work is going to be done in order, meaning if you're on 29th Street one week, it'll be 28th the next week, 27th, and so on in order, or if it's going to skip around. And the reason I asked that question is because there were some water outages probably 6 months or so ago in the area, and literally there was no water to be had in any store, any CVS, anything in that area. So I wanted to also ask if that might be something that could be planned for, especially for the residents, understanding that it is primarily a light commercial district.
Yes. Once we select a contractor for this project, we are going to get from the contractor, before even the contractor gets to the field, a schedule of work. That also must include also the sequence of work. If you, at this moment, you have any particular concern of where the project could begin, or you want this area to be done first, or some other area to be done last, we can include that in our drawings for the contractor to observe while he creates the sequence and the schedule for the project. And so, yes, ideally, we want to start, say, from the north and work our way south. or vice versa. Or we can start working also on the side streets, not touching the main street yet, and leave the main street for the last. So there will be an analysis of how to be done, what is the best optimal sequence, not only for the contractor to complete this project faster, but also take into consideration any concern that the community may have.
Thank you for that. How much notice will each area that's listed here receive prior to work starting in that area?
Like here, you see, you have, for us, it's a single project, regardless of whether it's on community board 5 or 4. And so what we have been thinking is that we want to start north by 32nd Street and then work our way south. As we approach any intersection, we want to work on the side streets, completing those streets also. So that way we don't have to come back to the north anymore. Once we go to, say, 28th Street, by that time we optimally we want 29 to 32nd Street, 33rd Street completed already.
Thank you. And the second part of my question was if there's any special considerations for Madison Square Garden and Penn Station.
I do not believe that this is, so correct me if I'm wrong, I do not believe that we have any interference with Madison Square Garden.
Actually,
that's true.
Yeah.
But your concern is about what? It's about keeping entrances to the Madison Square Garden open all the time, available all the time, accessible all the time. Is that what it is?
No, I was asking specifically about the water disruptions.
Oh, I see. No. I believe right now there is a situation going on with Metro North, I think, and DEP, and we are waiting for that determination on what is the outcome of whatever DEP and Metro North are doing right now. I believe that
Jorge, not Metro North. There should be Amtrak.
Amtrak, I'm sorry. They are trying to accommodate some needs for Amtrak. It looks like Amtrak has 2 different ways of fitting this area, and one of them is right now down. And so DEP and Amtrak are working right now in order to accommodate that. But if by the time we complete this project, or by the time we are going to start this project, and this has not been done, then this project will accommodate the needs for Amtrak.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next up is David.
I guess it's a related question. So is the 4-year period, that's start to finish, top to bottom, whatever order it's in? Because I saw reference to 3 stages. So all of that work would be done within this 4-year period?
Yes, I do not see where you saw the 3 stages.
It wasn't on this chart. It was
on the previous one, maybe. Again, we as designed this one here.
Stage 1 through 3.
Yeah, this is only a sample of how we plan to close the roadways. And so here we are assuming that the work area is where the water main is going to be installed, the new water mains. And so that's where we foresee to be working in that area. And so that's how we plan to manage the traffic, vehicular traffic, at the same time also manage the pedestrian traffic in the area. And so this is pictorial only.
So work won't be going on in, like in this example, in this work area for 4 years. That's
No. In this area is only, it will be perhaps if we have 20 blocks and we were able to divide exactly 4 years into the 20 blocks, that means that that's the amount of time that we may be in that block. Right. And so that's what it will be, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna be here in this area for years, no.
I mean, the reason I raise this, I live near a piece of this work that's been going on 15th Street, and we're starting year 3 just on 1 block. So multiplying that by the scale of this, just makes me wonder whether 4 years is a reasonable, assessment of how long this scope would take.
And so let me give you a little bit of technicality. I mean, when DEP has this type of project, we're gonna take a certain amount of time installing these facilities, depending upon the size of the facility. If we have a trunk water main that is 72 inches, yes, we're gonna be many months in one single block. This project is only for a 12 inches water main. Still, we have many difficulties in terms of how we want to install that, how we're going to manage traffic and pedestrians around the work zone. But it's only a 12 inches water main. The excavation will be about 3.5 inches, feet for that type of water main versus a trunk water main in sometimes we're going to need maybe 10 feet excavation. And as you imagine that if I'm going to excavate the road with 10 feet, that means that I'm going to occupy perhaps 3 lanes of traffic. And so that's a different type of project. And yes, I'm sure you have seen this type of construction in which DDC, if DDC was managing this project, we were taking that along one single place. Perhaps we were doing a shaft, perhaps we were doing sewers that required that lengthy amount of time in order to install it. This distribution water mains, I can leave the water main, existing water main on one side, and I can install the new one next to it. Once I install the new one, I can remove the old one and close it up and done. The concern for community board number 4, as EJ said it, is that they would like us to do 2 blocks and restore it right away, rather than waiting for the whole project to be finished in order to be restored. And that has been already noted in our drawings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Any other questions from members of the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll throw things open to members of the public who are in attendance. If you have a question or a comment, please use the raise hand feature at this time and we'll go down the line. Please keep your question or comment to 2 minutes, and we will start with Charles.
Hello, yes. So if there's going to be any low-income housing buildings affected by water shutdowns, is it possible that maybe the city could provide bottles of water or vouchers for water, because, you know, low-income people struggle with that sort of thing, especially with the price of inflation. I was wondering also, for any audio pedestrian signals in the area, please can you try to retain them if they're disrupted? And also maybe this would be a fantastic opportunity to install new ones, since to install a new one, the street has to be dug up. So if the street's being dug up anyway, maybe some could be installed. And my last comment is maybe Braille could be one of the languages. Some of these notices could be sent out to buildings, because I believe there's a housing for the blind in Community Board 4 on the west side. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. DDC, would you like to respond to?
Yeah, so noted. I in my estimate as designer, I would not add any quantities of money or for the water, and understand clearly what the residents' concerns are. I'm also a resident of New York City, and I also many times in front of my house I have seen construction going on or resurfacing going on from DOT or more projects from DEP, Connecticut, on Verizon, people working in front of my house too. And so I understand. I do believe that during construction, if we are going to shut down the water main for a long period of time, I think that to provide water to the residents in terms of in bottled water, it is possible. I do not foresee that we're gonna do a shutdown for that long. The longest will be only to, like I said before, if I'm going to install the new water main next to the existing one, the shutdown will be only to reconnect the new one to the existing network. And that, it does take some time, it doesn't take that much. And so again, our community liaison unit, they will coordinate with you. They will let you know. They will let you know the day and time at which the shutdown will happen. And of course, it's gonna happen at a time that inconveniences you the least. It's going to inconvenience you, but we're gonna look for the moment that inconveniences you the least.
Thanks. Does DDC want to respond to the issues of audio pedestrian signals or Braille notices?
Madeline?
Regarding the Braille notices, I have noted that, and I will bring that back to our team. I will provide follow-up to Marissa and CB5 on that, as well as the underground audio capabilities.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Charles. Next question / comment will come from Alan King. Alan, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm
Hi.
representing FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, and we're between 27th Street, between 7th and 8th Avenue. When the project commences, we would have 6 academic buildings and 3 dorms. Any consideration was given in terms of how we can coordinate and
Definitely, the same thing. We treat the school as any other residence in the area, and we think about the moment at which we're gonna shut down the water mains in the area. In your case, I have been into your campus, checking the area for this project. Unfortunately, the last time I went, I didn't have any access into the area. There was an event in your school, and so I couldn't enter the area. But the other issue that you're gonna have is students walking from one building to the next building through on the roadway. That will be limited to the sites where we have no construction areas. That will be closer to the crosswalks. That's also a concern that we have been thinking about, how we are gonna manage the students walk between one building to the next. In terms of the water, it's the same thing about for the other areas of the rest of this project. Our liaison will get in touch with the school, coordinate clearly with you guys, and let you know exactly when we can shut down the water. At the same time, you can say this is not a good time for us because we are going to have this event in which it's gonna be during these hours, and we cannot have the shutdown at that time. And so we'll look for another time that is, again, the least inconvenient for you.
would it be possible for someone to reach out to FIT now so we can start this discussing this process?
You mean right now during this design process? Of course. But that's why you have the community board. They can get in touch with you so that we can have one single voice, one single comments from the whole area through the community board. But if the community board is they're okay with it, of course, we can get in touch with you directly.
Our board office can certainly facilitate that connection. Alan, if you're able to reach out to our board office, they can make the connection.
Okay, thank you. We do have a representative that would reach out to you, and we'll coordinate from there.
Great, thanks.
Thank
you. Next question will come from Lisa Wager. Lisa, you can unmute now.
Okay, so I am that representative who will reach out to you. Hi, HA. I have a number of questions. First of all, next time DDC wants to come and walk around and look at the campus or get a sense of it, all you have to do is call, and we will happily delegate someone with authority and knowledge to walk you around and give you access to see what you need to see so that we can start to be in this together and understand how it will affect our campus. We have 8,000 students. We're both sides of the block for half of the block. And on the south side of the block, we're half the block. And on the north side of the block, we're the entire block. And we are teaching classes 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. That includes the weekends. So needless to say, there is no good time except, 3 in the morning for the water to go out. I see on this chart that's up now that it says project limits 27th Street and 7th Avenue intersection. What does that mean?
On 27th Avenue, that means that in intersection of those two streets, we're gonna have also project there working the area.
I know what an intersection is. I don't understand how that is a limit. Does that mean you are not going down the side streets to the west of it or to the east of it? What does the limit mean?
Sorry, can you make this picture a little
Yes,
bit bigger?
that's okay.
No? Okay, point it out then.
It's right here. It means that we are replacing the water mains along the 7th Avenue, but we are not going to replace the water mains along the 27th Street.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, on either side of 27th. So 27th from 7th to 8th and 27th from 7th to 6th is not getting
Right.
A distribution replaced. Okay.
So it's
but
only
when
it's
you-
only the actual street, it's only the actual streetscapes that are shaded red on this diagram. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So when there's work being done at 7th Avenue and 27th Street, does that water main, my understanding is that water main feeds the side streets. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when there's a shutdown in that area, there would be a shutdown on our campus, but there would not be construction on our campus. There would not be roadway being cut up on our campus.
That is correct.
So then the issue that we just were concerned about having construction on West 27th Street and how students would cross from the residence halls to the academic buildings might be not an issue.
Might not be an issue at all.
That's good news. Okay, then. How long we've lived through this for years now on 31st Street with our residence hall. I understand that's a trunk water main. I'm very relieved to have that distinction explained, that this is simply a distribution water main. So we have some experience with this, but I gather it's on a more disastrous scale. So that's great. How long typically are the shutdowns when you have to unhook and then rehook the distribution main? Is it like a 6 hours, 1 hour?
Hours. It could be 2 hours. It could be 3 hours. It depends on what we're connecting to. So if there's a main going this direction and we're gonna go into a T in that direction, it depends about how long it's gonna take to cut this piece over here and do the connection, the new connection to the new water main. And that's what it will take. It could be 6 hours perhaps.
Okay. And so it sounded like you were saying you were going to take it in 5-block chunks, that each year you expected to complete a 5-block chunk. Did I understand that correctly? Or was that just sort of?
No, I didn't say that. What I would say is if we take the whole limit of the project, and I think it's about 3,000 linear feet, Zoe?
36.
Yeah, 36. And so we have 4 years. So if we can divide that many linear feet into that many months, then more or less, depending upon many other elements, that's the time that we're gonna spend.
Okay.
Per linear foot. We're gonna do that many linear foot in 1 month.
Okay.
But remember, nothing. When
Hi.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just lost you. Could you say that again? Whatever you said.
What I wanted to say was that in construction, nothing has a manual. I can plan to do something next week, and it so happened that it's snowing, so I cannot do work.
Yes, no, we understand that. We totally understand that. So,
That's
and
right.
I would expect that, so in the same way that Mike Whitfield is the community person for the 9th Avenue water main trunk replacement, there'll be someone like that sending out emails to the community with schedules every week.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Is that you, Marilyn?
No, I am the Borough Outreach Coordinator. I work directly for DDC. The liaison would be a consultant that's hired to work on the project, and that person will come on board before construction begins and begin outreach work and notifications throughout.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, well, I want to know what CB4 meant by when they asked that DDC restore. Would they restore the street? What, I don't understand what restore meant. I'm thinking now perhaps it doesn't matter because you're not going to be cutting up our street, but I would just like to understand that.
I suppose the question is whether or not each as you conclude work on each block, does it get restored and refurbished to a final state immediately? Does it get repaved into a final working state immediately, or does it get kind of temporary materials until the project is complete and then the whole stretch gets repaved at once? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, that's how we normally do it. But we heard.
I'm sorry, which one?
Just restore temporarily and wait until the whole project is done, and then do the whole restoration completely. But we heard the comments and concerns from Community Board Community Board 4, and so now we are asking the contractor to do that. As soon as he does 2-3 blocks, restore immediately to the original conditions of the roadway.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay,
Lisa, does that make sense?
Yes, completely. The only other thing, I'm sure this is available, but I would just like to stipulate that it would be really helpful if there could be a rough schedule put out as part of the bid of, we understand everything changes, there's undisclosed conditions, there's weather, we understand all of that, but just a sort of vague zonal, like monthly anticipation of how the project will move through the neighborhoods, we would appreciate that happening.
It will be done once the project goes to the field.
Right. That's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then
Okay.
at that time as well, there will be a liaison, and the liaison will also do what are called quarterly newsletters, and they'll provide an overview of the upcoming quarter and work to be done then, so that information will be continued.
Okay, and I will convey Alan's questions, and he's the deputy head of facilities, so he has questions. If facilities has questions, I will convey them, and in the beginning I can be the intermediary, but then probably it'll be better if people who understand the work are speaking to each other. But I'm certainly beginning liaison person to make those connections.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for those answers, and thanks, Lisa, for the questions. Not seeing any other hands from any members of the public. We will probably at this point go into our business session conversation among members of the committee to determine what, if anything, to do. So thank you, members of the public, for all your questions, and thank you to the members of the DDC and affiliated groups. Members of the T&E committee. As I said earlier, Community Board 4 themselves wrote a letter with their concerns a couple of days ago. I don't believe we have the final letter yet, but we have a sense of how their conversation went 2 nights ago. And if we have similar concerns, it may behoove us to do to lay them out in a similar letter. As the presenters were talking about, it's useful to get all these concerns up front so they can bake them into their response and into their timetables. For what it's worth, in addition to some of the things that I mentioned that CB4 already called out, like bike lanes, daytime versus nighttime work hours, and staging areas, what I heard tonight was a reiteration of this question that the agency seems really receptive to, which is having the contractor restore each block to its final permanent state immediately, instead of waiting until the entire 4 years until the entire stretch of the work area is done. I heard us talk about making sure outreaches also in languages including Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Hindu, and Braille, particularly where there is housing for the visually impaired. I heard concern about making sure water outages are shortened in low usage times and clearly communicated. I heard talk about understanding the ordering and timing of the order in which blocks are done. I think there was a notion that they probably go from north to south, but they are open to hearing from the community about what the ideal ordering would be. And there was this request to retain or otherwise install new audio pedestrian signals, which the presenters also said that they were taking under advisement. So these seem to me things that could be worth mentioning in a letter. I'm interested to hear comments, though. Yeah, Nancy.
I think we should try to get this presentation and put it on our website, and also introduce the idea in our newsletter so that people know they can go to the website, our website, and at least see this preliminary idea. And maybe we can ask for responses or comments. I don't even know if we can do that, or if they are accepting comments from the public, because it's an informational thing at this point. And we, Community Board 5, we're a source of information for our community.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Would the presenters have any objection to us making this presentation publicly available?
Again, I think that it would be better if we get comments from a single voice, so that we know that we are not getting comments from different directions in a way.
Oh,
that
well, certainly, yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, we will certainly generate a letter with our comments as a community board. But I think we just want to make sure that the community is as informed as possible, and then when you do have this liaison, that the community knows where to go.
Definitely. Am I right,
Okay.
Madeline?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Maki.
Thanks, EJ. I just wanted to reiterate again the concern with the congestion in and around Madison Square Garden and Penn Station, especially because the hotel demolition is also going on across the street, and with staging of trucks and supplies and equipment, along with traffic and events and so forth. It just seems like that's a recipe for a lot of congestion and concern for those who both work and live there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, we're in a business session now, so we're just
Oh.
kind of talking amongst ourselves, but thank you. Yeah, Maki, I think that makes a lot of sense to highlight as well in the letter. I don't know if you have any specific suggestions about how they do perhaps the ordering of the blocks or the traffic management around that, but it's certainly something we can highlight as a concern for them.
Thank you. And I hate to volunteer myself, but I'm happy to help if you need help with the letter.
You're 2 steps ahead of me. That was gonna be my last question for the committee, so I really appreciate it. whether we're any volunteers. But before we get to that, are there any other final comments for members of the committee? I've been keeping a running list of our concerns and topics here, and I think unless there are any other thoughts or any other objections, we don't need to take a vote on a letter. But if this is the general consensus of the committee, we could write this letter and send it on behalf of both the committee and Community Board 5. Any final comments? Okay. Yeah, Nancy.
So they're going to have some sort of a public hearing or several public hearings and invite the general public to the hearing to present this, correct? Like when DOT was putting in the new bus lane on 14th Street, 23rd Street, 34th Street, they had a number of public hearings so that people could come and first of all have the presentation, but also comments could be recorded. Are they planning on doing something like that?
Our presentations, yes,
yeah, go ahead.
our presentations as of right now are to the Community Board 4 and Community Board 5. If there are recommendations to present to other entities, please let us know, and I will bring that information back as well to our design team and construction team as well.
So then I propose that we ask for a public hearing to our constituents in our district.
And I'm sorry, which district and which elected official do you represent? I'm sorry.
Community Board 5, our whole community board. It would be publicized, but I think the city has budgets to publicize it like other agencies do for changes like this.
Okay. All right. I will bring that information back. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. We can encourage that in our letter as well. Not seeing any other comments and not hearing any objection from any members of the committee, it sounds like this letter is the direction we're going to go. Thank you to all the presenters and the DDC for the presentation and for hearing all of our comments and taking them under advisement. We'll as a board, be sending along a letter that summarizes all of our comments and concerns as well. Unless there's anything else, we thank you for coming in. We thank you for the presentation and the update, and look forward to liaising and being updated by you many times over the next 4 years.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we're moving right along. We'll move to the third item on our agenda for the evening, which is an update from the MTA on accessibility upgrades to the F and L lines at 14th Street. Do we have a representative from the MTA with us?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Okay, so yes. Hi.
So welcome. I'm not. Do you have a presentation or just
Yes.
a verbal
No,
update?
we have a
for us?
presentation.
Okay. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
so-
You can go ahead and kick that off. I'm not sure how long your presentation is planned. I'd sort of just because this is really just an update for the community and members of the board. We don't anticipate taking any action tonight. Just wanted to lay that out. If you could time box the presentation to 15 minutes or so, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I will do my best. So my name is Marcus Brook. I'm an assistant director in government relations at MTA New York City Transit. We actually presented a scaled down version of this presentation to Board 5's District Service Cabinet about 2 weeks ago. And this is a little bit more of an expansive presentation, which we've also presented to Community Board 4 last week. So I'm not going to, spend too much time on introductions. I have our project CEO, Edmund Gebenite, who's going to go through the presentation. And of course, we'll be willing and happy to answer any questions that you might have once we're completed. So Edmund, if you can allow Edmund to unmute himself.
Yes, I'm unmuted, Marcus.
Okay.
Thank you so very much for having me. I'm a little bit concerned with what EJ said about the few minutes. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to simply explain this very complex project.
Okay, thank you.
So, but by the way, we have 27 slides, but I'm going to try and go through it quickly. Anyway, so here it is. This project was awarded last year. It is a design build. It was awarded to a joint venture, Sinalta and Forte. And they also have a joint venture for the DOR, which is Canet Fleming and Auburn. So what we have here is we're doing a combination of two things. We're doing an upgrade, an accessibility upgrade, and we're also doing a set of good repair in a rather very complex station that involves 3 lines. We have the L line, we have the 1, 2, 3, which is the 7th line. We have the 6th Avenue, which is the F&M. So as you look at the project overview, we're going to be providing a total of 9 elevators and also repairing a lot of existing stairs. Actually, we're going to be refurbishing a lot of existing stairs and constructing new stairs. So on 14th Street, on 14th Street and 6th, we have the AD accessible stations where we're going to be providing 6 elevators, 2 street to mezzanine and 4 mezzanine to platforms that will serve the L and the F&M, the F&M. And on the 7th Avenue, we have 3 elevators, 1 street to mezzanine, and then we have 2 mezzanine to platforms that's going to be serving the 7th Avenue. And then we have the set of good repair, which is the SOGR that you see there. That's going to be performed from 1st Avenue to 8th Avenue. Next slide, please. So, like I mentioned, this project was awarded last year, December. So it's a 33 months project. Out of that already, we're in the design process. We're almost completing the design, and the release for constructions documents are already in the process. So we have that 6 months already covered. We have 1 month of mobilization, which maybe you have seen some of them. But the heavy construction is going to be starting hopefully early next week, where we are going to be begin to relocate the underground utilities. It's going to be 24 months of heavy construction. It's a very aggressive schedule, and we are very, very mandated to finish on time. So we're going to have 2 months of very light activities towards the end. So as you look at the chart below you, or the graph, you see that how the milestones are tied. We have the milestone 1, which, like I mentioned to you, will be some of the elevators and existing stairs and new stairs being done to get the ADA going. And then we jump into 7th Avenue, where we have the milestone 2. And then we're going to come back again to 6th Avenue, where we're going to be having the milestone 3. Then hopefully with that, we're going to have the substantial completion and then final. So the next slide indicates the dates. Like I mentioned, it's going to be very aggressive. So the whole idea is that we want to be out of there by 2024. Okay, that's our completion date. Okay, next slide. So I hope you guys remember the milestone that I just mentioned. So what are those milestones? You see milestone 1, that involves coming up from the L line platform. The L line is an island platform. So you see that elevator. So it will involve actually about 3 elevators, 1 for the L line, 1 for the F&M, and there's 3 elevators that brings you down to the mezzanine that serves F&M and L. Okay, that's our goal to complete that. Then that's on the left side is the milestone 3, because we're jumping to 7th Avenue. So keep that milestone 3 as I get to it later on the slides. Okay. So you may have seen some of the work in terms of the test pits that we've been doing in the past few weeks to just make sure that we don't have any surprises. Those test pits, as you see so far, the one is completed. Almost, as a matter of fact, all of them has been completed so far. That helped us as well with the design process that have almost been completed now. Next slide. So this slide here shows how the phasing is going to go, the sequence of work. So the intention is to start off with the 1. 1 is I don't want to call it orange. It looks orange to me. Where we're going to be excavating for elevator 614. That's going to be serving from mezzanine to platform. 2 is the area that we're going to be excavating. Now, when I say excavating, we're going to be doing the utility relocation that will allow us to provide those elevators. 2 is that area where we're going to be doing those utility relocations. What you see right now that is crossed is the existing utilities. So we're going to be providing new and reconnecting back to make way for those elevators. 3 is where we plan to build the new stair, S13. Okay, that's the green color. And 4 is another utility relocation where we plan to build another street elevator that serves from street to mezzanine, which is the elevator 612. So this is a Google view of right at the corner of 14th Street and 6th Avenue. And again, it mentions what the milestones will include. At the northeast corner and the southeast corner, you see the refurbishment of existing stairs, new elevator 611, new stairs 613, new elevator 609. Well, obviously, that's the one that's going to come in from the L platform to the mezzanine. We have the new elevator 614 serving Uptown, F&M. We have the northbound and mezzanine platform repairs and an upgrade to conform with AD accessibility. And then there are some back of houses that we have to be relocated to make room for some of this new work. And this drawing here shows the existing stairs that we have to be refurbished. Right at the northeast corner of 14th and 6th. S1 we have to be refurbished. And on the southeast corner of 14th and 6th Avenue, you have the S2 and X6. Like I mentioned as well, that has to be refurbished. Next slide. Oh, by the way, can you go back to that slide again? The one in green, if you don't mind, is the new stair that we're constructing. The last slide that you just, okay, we're in a hurry, so let's keep going. The drawing you see here is part of the MPT drawing that we are basically finalizing with DOT. Okay, the hatch area, the work zones, and the highlighted area is how we intend to move the pedestrian as this work continues starts. Okay. Go back. So this is just you know a 3D of what new construction as against the existing that will be performed in this project. The dark gray is the existing, and the light gray with the street elevator shows you the new proposal or rather new construction that's going to be happening. Okay, and you see the accurate sewer towards the back. Okay. And then milestone 2, which we go to 7th Avenue. Like I mentioned again, this area has 3 elevators that we're putting in, 1 straight to mezzanine and 2 mezzanine to platform. And the street elevator 615 is going to be at the southwest corner of 14th and 7th. All right. And as well, if you guys are familiar with the passageway that goes between the 6th and we're going to be rehabilitating that passageway as well between 6th and 7th. Then we have the southbound and northbound platforms on the 7th line that we're going to be rehabilitating, and also at the mezzanine we have an extension of that area that would make it wider to accommodate our customers. Here again, all this test space has been completed and we have no surprises at all. It's basically, it gives us an edge to start the construction as quickly as possible. Now, again, those test space, like I mentioned, we're done to confirm what's on the ground, and we're going to begin to, hopefully within the next week or so, you will begin to see the work begin to relocate all these underground utilities. And again, here is the MPT, indicating the area of work as opposed to the pedestrian walkways that we plan to provide. Here again, you see the new stair that we're providing, the X5. Then we have the elevator 615 that is on the southwest corner, like I mentioned. And then the S7 and X6 are the existing stairs that we plan to refurbish. It goes again as you move down on the 7th Avenue to 13th and 12th Street. We have those two, those are X3, X4, X1, and X2 of existing stairs that we plan to refurbish. I hope I'm moving as fast as you want, EJ. And
you're doing a great job.
And then we come back again, as I mentioned before, back to 6th Avenue, where we have the third milestone. Okay, and that third milestone will basically focus more on the F&M and a little bit of the elevators on the airline, That's what you see here. And this third milestone will lead towards basically the substantial completion. Here it is again for the third milestone, the work area, as opposed to the pedestrian traffic that we try to provide. Okay. And here we have the green again is the new stair that we're going to be providing, and the red stairs are the existing stairs that we're going to be refurbishing. And this slide here indicates the state of good repair for the L line, starting from 1st to 8th Avenue. Like I mentioned again, we're going to be repairing the steel beams, column replacements. We have leak mitigation along that line as well, in sense of we're going to be injecting chemical grouting within the concrete, in areas where they're cracked, and some small repairs as well. Next slide. And you guys may have seen some of the borings around that area that have occurred already. And then we have some of the exploratory chopping of the mezzanine floor to expose those columns that needs repair. And that's what we have for to date. So the approved working hours is going to be from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have the continuous operations as well that deals with the that will continue within the track area. And those are times are 24 hours operation. But any, should I say, street work, it will be limited within those times that we showed you.
And I just want to mention, one second,
Sure.
I just want to mention that work 24 hours behind the barricades will be taking place in the station. It won't be above ground, just so you know. So the work hours above ground is 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Go ahead.
Correct.
Sorry.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
That's correct. So what are we going to be doing to mitigate impact on our riding public? We're going to try as much as possible to provide a proper directional signage, timely posting of notifications of service disruption and closures. We're going to do every possible best to maintain adequate working surfaces free of trip hazards. We're going to maintain proper visibility around barricaded work areas. We will be providing flagging of moving equipment and trucking. Obviously, we're going to be doing the dust monitoring and control, housekeeping and cleanliness of the site, and noise and vibration monitoring and control, definitely. We're going to try and reduce that noise as much as possible. Securing the site and eliminating inadvertent trespass, erection of physical barriers around work zone to protect the public. Okay, we're going to be using user barriers and wherever we have agreed with DOT. We're going to be maintaining adequate illumination, throughout the station, and also basically work areas as well. Maximizing effectiveness of field level resources and engineering resources. Okay, so that's it. I believe I did that in 10 minutes, did I?
Good job.
You
Good
came
job.
close.
So this last slide just talks about, you guys already have my information. You can reach out to me for questions and follow-ups on anything that you have concerns about. And there'll be a 24-hour hotline number, which won't be manned 24 hours, but this will allow us to, Edmund, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This will also be monitored at some point so that someone can address things in real time. Okay.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you for the presentation of that clearly complex project that's going to take place over 33 months. Appreciate how you were able to condense the complexity there. And obviously the blocks, the two milestones on the north side of 14th Street are in our district, and the one on the south is not. Appreciate it. Again, for members of the committee, thank you. For members of the committee, we don't anticipate really taking action on this, but we certainly appreciate getting the update from the presenters here. And if the members of the committee have any questions, please feel free to raise them now. Yeah, Nancy.
My concern is about noise. And is the work going to be 7 days a week or 5 days?
Well, in a true sense, we plan to do the work in 7 days, but during the heavy construction. But let me be a little bit clear on that. We are planning to do as much as possible within the 5 days. Okay, but like we have a very aggressive schedule because our whole intention is to stay there at a very limited time. And that's why we're extending to that 7 days. So like we mentioned before, any work on the street level, we're mandated to do it, during the day, and we're going to try as much as possible to maintain that, I believe, DEP noise level.
And you said the work hours are 7 to 3.
That's during the day. That's correct. That's what we're planning to do.
During the week, that's fine, but on the weekends, I've lived at 16th Street and 7th Avenue for 40 years, and the area has changed drastically. It's much more residential than that it was when I first moved into this neighborhood. So Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m. noise is going to be really upsetting to all the many residents that live in this neighborhood. So I just like to bring that up.
Okay, so Nancy, just so you know, we will as this progresses, like Edmund said, we have a super aggressive schedule to be there for as short a period of time as possible. We will endeavor to try to, on the weekends, basically, let's see how this goes, and if the noise is disruptive in the mornings, on the weekends, you guys let us know. We'll try to back that up. I'll talk to Edmund and we'll see what we could do to try to have that work take place a little bit later. But the goal here is to do this on time and on budget.
Right. It's just there are more people also working from home now than ever before. So a lot of people are working in their homes, and the noise distraction can be a problem if someone's, let's say, on a Zoom call. And there's this enormous drilling or some sort of demolition going on. I mean, I think most of it will not be noisy, but you are digging holes, you are breaking up concrete, you are replacing steel. That's very noisy construction. And with the buildings around here, the noise will travel from building to building and bounce back and forth. So we need to keep that in mind. Thank
you. Point taken, and you guys will stay in contact with me, and we'll work through that as we go.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Janice.
Yeah, so I have 2 questions. The first of which, I noticed in the presentation that you will be notifying people of service disruptions, but if there will be service disruptions, will the MTA be providing alternative means of transportation if the subways need to be shut down? And then the second question might be getting a little too deep into the weeds, but given the sort of rise in flash flooding that we've been getting in New York City, I was wondering if proper drainage has been taken into account into these plans.
Okay. In terms of providing alternative traveling, is that what you asked? Was that your first question?
Yes, that was my first question.
Yeah.
The answer to that, let me take that.
Okay.
The answer to that, Janice, is yes, absolutely. Whenever there's an outage, weekend outage, we put together what's called a general order. That's why I called it a GO. And basically that outlines an alternate service plan for our traveling customers. It really depends on what the outage is, what severity is. Fortunately, in Manhattan, if you're in an outer borough, that means a lot more than it does in Manhattan because you have so many options. But absolutely, the proper alternatives will be provided in concert with these outages.
Now, in terms of your second question, you talked about, did I hear you say that in terms of the flood in that area? Is that?
Yeah, so I don't know if this question is too detailed and not appropriate for this presentation,
I think it's a very good question, and obviously you know that I'm just wondering whether you have the idea that that area is considered a flood zone. A small portion of that area is considered a flood zone, and we are aware of that, and that's what our design is intended to do, to raise that curb. Not to a point, and also obviously we have to maintain the DOT requirements on that as well. But we also have drainage within the stay area to capture some of the water that's going to be coming in. If there is, we're pitching away from the entrances into the stay. We're pitching away from where, if you're familiar with our elevators, it has a concrete barrier, but at the entry point, we're pitching away from that point. So we're going to try as much as possible to mitigate that that water from coming in. But look, it's been done. It's what we have in our design right now, and we hope we're going to be successful with it.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, definitely seems like a increasing problem. Thank you.
Thanks. So we have still another item on our agenda that's going to be a major discussion about Broadway. So we're going to try to not take up too much more of your time and wrap this up as soon as we can. Are there any other questions from members of the committee?
So just so you know, EJ, I'll make sure I send this presentation to you guys tomorrow.
That'll be great. Thank you. We'll appreciate that. We'll move here to members of the public. If any members of the public have a question or comment, please use the raise hand feature now. I see one, and we'll start with our one and only comment from Miriam Fisher.
Okay, can you hear me? Did I unmute?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I applaud the new subway from the Elevator Action Group, and I remember a few years ago asking Andy Byford, who's one of our heroes, when we thought the L would be down, that whether they could put in an elevator on 6th Avenue, and he said no. So it wasn't doable. Apparently it is doable, but it is complicated. But that's not my question. There are announcements now on the subway that tell you that the elevator is in the middle, the front, the back of the platform when you get there, but they don't tell you that the elevator is out. I've been taking the number 7 for the last month. It's been out, but if I didn't know that, there's no announcement. I tweeted this to the MTA, and they told me that those announcements are hardwired, but they would do something to investigate whether we may, looking at their email, adjust these announcements. These are serious issues for people in wheelchairs who are often stranded when they don't know that the elevator is out and they need to be lifted in their wheelchair and can't plan ahead to change their route while there's still time. These are serious, and this is all new technology that might be doable. We get announcements now that the train is changing from a local to an express. It gives us a heads up whether we want to get on that train or not. Can they have a way of letting people know that the wheelchair is out, that the elevator is out, so people in wheelchairs don't get stranded?
Okay, thanks, Miriam. I don't know if our presenters today are going to be able to answer, because they're focused on a particular project. I don't know if they're going to be able to answer a system-wide question like that, but I'll throw it to them. Did you folks want to respond to that?
I'll just respond to that. I'll just say, Miriam, very much understood. And I don't know if these things are getting better as time goes on. We have a full-blown commitment to make this system, 95% accessible. This is part of this project is part of that movement towards making things easier for persons with disabilities. And sure, if the elevator is out at the location, there's not an alternative existing in the station, then there should be an announcement made on the train to let people know. and we have a whole group of people working on that. So what I could say is that I'm anticipating those kinds of issues to be better as we continue to move forward. Not saying that it's a perfect world and we get it right every time, but I've been riding the system for my entire life as well. And I know that these things are getting better. So point taken, I will reiterate that. You've tweeted it, so the right people have the information, and I'll reiterate that to them, that was a point that was brought up at our meeting tonight.
Okay, thanks, Marcus. Thanks. We now apparently have 2 more hands raised. If you have a question or comment about this project, I'm just going to ask you to please ask it succinctly and limit it to 2 minutes. Thanks. Next up will be Charles.
I request that guided tactile strips to be installed for blind people to navigate the station along the platforms and the stairs, as the MTA has experimented with that in the Metro Tech station and has not actually installed them yet in any station. So maybe this could be the first station for them to be installed in, as a blind man fell into the tracks just last month. So I think that's really, really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. I will pass that on as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles and Marcus. Next up will be Samir. Sorry, did Samir have his hand raised?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to see if I could be made a panelist so I can participate as a member of the community board in this committee meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, Samir. I think the panelists for the meeting are reserved to members of the Transportation and Environment Committee.
The bylaws say that all board members have the right to attend and participate in the deliberation of all committees of the board, not just people from the Transportation Committee. Thank you.
I guess I would defer to our chair, Vicky Barbero, for a ruling on that. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The answer is no. You are allowed to be there. You're allowed to participate in the audience, as we've had a number of other board members doing so, but only committee members are deliberating.
Okay, thank you. I'll send an email with the bylaw specifically, but I'll continue to.
I know what the bylaws say, Samir, but thank you.
All right, thanks, Samir and Vicky. Okay, not seeing any other hands at this point from members of the public, and because we're not anticipating any action here, we don't really need a business session. I'll just ask one more time whether there are any final questions from members of the committee. Yeah, Nancy.
I think the concept that the public attendee was talking about, I think there could maybe be signage on the elevators at street level, so that before a rider even goes below grade, they know what's going on down there, so they don't even attempt to take the elevator down to the mezzanine level. If there's a way to put signage up on those elevator enclosures, that would be a great thing, I think, to add to the project if possible.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, thanks for the suggestion. Thank you to the presenters for this presentation. Thank you for taking a complicated issue and making it as concise as possible. And thanks very much for hearing all of our feedback today. We really do appreciate it. We know this is going to be a project that's with us for a long time, so we very much appreciate your engagement, and we appreciate you sending along the presentation to the board as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks very much for coming. Have a good night. With that, we'll move on to our fourth and final topic of the evening. This is a topic that was added to our agenda very recently for very good reason. This is an update from DOT on their Broadway vision plan. This is obviously in the context of the tragedy that took place on Broadway over the last week. And so we wanted to make sure to expedite being able to hear from DOT as soon as possible about both the incident and the way that they're responding and all their plans for Broadway. So with that, I'll hand things over to whoever from DOT is going to be doing the talking.
Thank you, EJ. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Pinkar, and I'm Borough Commissioner for New York City Department of Transportation. I want to thank EJ and Marisa and the entire committee for allowing us to come here tonight and continue a conversation of the agency's vision for Broadway. This has been an ongoing discussion and partnership between us and many of the stakeholders along the corridor over many years now. And clearly, Emily Weidenhoff, our wonderful Director of Public Space, was with you just a couple of months ago to share an update on that vision. And we had highlighted 25th and 27th Streets as our next corridor. But in light of the tragic crash and collision on Monday, we did want to speed things up. We have the full support of Mayor Adams and Commissioner Rodriguez. So we wanted to come to you quickly tonight to start sharing some of our ideas. We're going to do some public engagement sessions tomorrow and then again on Tuesday. And then we'll come back to you over the summer and just continue the dialogue. So thank you for your quick agreement here. And I'll ask Emily to run us through the quick presentation.
Great, thanks so much, Ed. Good evening, everyone. So again, very quickly, we're here on an update to our Broadway Vision Plan, which is a comprehensive public realm planning approach that allows us to think both about the entire corridor, but also be responsive to very specific needs on individual blocks using a whole host of tools. As Ed said, our planning for this year and next year had been focused on University Place and the Broadway connection from Union Square to Flatiron, the northern Broadway section of Flatiron from 25th Street up to 32nd Street, and then looking to continue our work in the rest of the Times Square tail. Today, we are talking and going to share some specific details about what we are now calling our phase one, which we're hoping to move on a quicker timeline, really looking at 25th to 29th Streets. As you know, this fits within the larger context of the Flatiron District and our thinking through the spaces. These are the shared streets that we implemented from 21st to 23rd Streets last year. And then we are working with the Flatiron 23rd Street partnership on the two pop-up plazas that you all see out on the street now. But of course, again, we're here to really try to expedite and move these improvements along as they deliver safety benefits and really prioritize bikes and pedestrians. Here's a quick look for context, just looking at the 5-year safety data from 2016 to 2020, looking at this stretch of Broadway from 25th Street up to 32nd Street in comparison to the avenues. And then not included in this 5-year summary is Monday's crash, which took place between 28th and 29th Street along Broadway. And so with that, as Ed said, we are beginning our public engagement for a more detailed proposal, and we really appreciate you helping spread the word and getting folks out to give their support. We will be with the bid out on Broadway on the 25 to 26th Street block this Friday, tomorrow, from 4 to 6 p.m. And then again on Tuesday, June 28th from noon to 2 p.m. We'll also have a public survey that is now live. Here's a link in a QR code to share. The bid has put this in their newsletter. Please spread far and wide. But this will be a survey that's open for a month that will get a lot of really great feedback about improvements on the corridor, how people use this stretch of the corridor, and their feelings about safety as well. So very quickly in this kind of phase one, these are the proposals that we plan to present to the community. So starting from the south and moving north, we have Broadway from 25th to 26th Street. This we see as really, and I apologize. What I should say is a big goal of this stretch of the corridor is to formalize a two-way bike connection. As many of you know, cyclists use Broadway two-way anyway, and we have been working on through our open street work and other projects across the city, really being able to formalize two-way cycling along corridors with the goal of clarifying and making the cycling and pedestrian interactions and enhancing safety there. So you'll see in this project that kind of formalizing the two-way bike connection that will link all the way up to our two-way path on 6th Avenue at Herald and Greeley Squares. So anyway, I'm looking at a plaza block on the 25 to 26th Street block with that two-way bike connection that incorporates slowing and kind of hug points for cyclists. This will deliver additional public space and support the outdoor dining that is thriving on that block. Very similar proposal that connects up to 27th Street, again, additional public space. You can see here again, we're really thinking about how these blocks connect and how there is traffic calming and additional pedestrian space at the intersections themselves, which will help shorten pedestrian crossings and slow turning vehicles. Then as we move to the 27th to 28th Street block, this we are proposing as a shared space where we have the advisory 5 miles an hour. The entire space is graveled. We're creating additional public space, but also shortening pedestrian crossings. Here again, you see formalizing that two-way connection, as well as providing key moments for critical curb access for loading, pickup and drop off, things like that. And a very similar approach to the 28 to 29 block. This is the Ritz Carlton Hotel is just finished and has a curb cut on this block. So again, we're looking to maintain some curb access and loading. But in addition to the pedestrian space, we are also working in the chicane, which is just additional traffic calming. And that's a treatment we've used successfully elsewhere on the corridor. All these designs are still very much in development, and we're really looking forward to getting some great public feedback as well as from stakeholders on the block. And we're really grateful to have such a great partner with the bid in this district. So in terms of next steps, again, we have the public engagement and the survey that will be open through July 22nd. In early July, we're also working with the bid to expand open streets in this northern section of the district, just to bring additional traffic calming to these blocks. Throughout the summer, we'll be finalizing the proposal based on all the feedback and coming back to you with those details. And the goal is to implement this phase 1 portion of the project in late August, as we then continue the visioning and conversations about developing our next set of projects along the corridor. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you for the update. Thank you for the information about the public engagement sessions, as we were talking about in other topics tonight. Those kinds of direct public engagement sessions with the community are incredibly helpful. Did you speak at all to how the changes on these blocks would have specifically affected an accident or an incident like the tragedy that we saw this week? Is it specifically about further separating the different types of traffic, or is it about just the notion of a shared street usually getting less traffic and traffic moving at a lower speed than, say, on a straight stretch of traffic lane? Can you speak a little bit about how some of these proposals would have addressed similar types of incidents?
So it's a good question. I think it's incredibly challenging to talk about what could have or may have happened. But I think just to reiterate, the approach here is one of really transforming the entire Broadway corridor so that the entirety of the stretch is low vehicular volumes. So anytime we're creating additional plaza blocks, we are ultimately cutting down the amount of vehicles that are using the corridor, really limiting it as much as possible to local slow traveling vehicles. And also, again, as much as possible, we are looking to, for any of vehicles kind of crossing Broadway, again, using traffic calming elements where we kind of hug and create pinch points that, again, help slow vehicles and help slow vehicle turns. Particularly in light of this crash, we're going to continue to work with our traffic engineers and look at the larger analysis to see if there are also, potentially any additional turn bans that make sense, where we're really kind of creating very smaller local loops to further impact traffic. But those will be things that we'll kind of look at in addition to receiving community feedback.
Okay, thank you. Then thank you for the presentation. Are there questions from members of the committee? Yeah, we'll start with Janice.
Thanks. So I was very intrigued by that map of the crash statistics. I was wondering how the number of crashes at each of those intersections compares to other intersections in the city. And then I guess like a follow-up question would be how you think closing Broadway might affect those numbers, since it looked like the greater numbers of crashes were occurring on the side streets.
Sorry, I had a pop-up window blocking my unmute. So again, that's a great question. I don't have kind of a more robust answer for you, but I can say, again, at a very high level, as you saw with the stats, the overall crashes were less on Broadway than on the avenues. Obviously, for DOT, one crash is too many, and for us, it's really about vision zero and embracing a holistic approach as much as possible. I will say, in terms of trends we've seen along the corridor, is closing and creating additional plaza blocks has dramatically reduced the vehicle volume and use along the corridor. So pre-green light from Midtown, there were about 1,500 vehicles an hour using Broadway in the Times Square district. Now our peak hour in the same location is between 250 to 350 vehicles in the peak hour. So all of these types of treatments continue to prioritize pedestrians and cyclists and really help reinforce only local access for vehicles.
Thank you.
Next up is Maki.
Thank you, EJ. The quick question I had is related to the two-way bike lane that was mentioned in the presentation. I wanted to ask if that meant that the existing bike lane along the thoroughfare was going to be widened. And I think that would translate to the shortened pedestrian crossing that was being described. I'm a little bit concerned about that, because with the shortened pedestrian area, now that person has to look both left and right as bicycles are coming in opposite directions. And I wanted to ask if there was any way to either educate and or mitigate the speed of some of the cyclists as well.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point and set of questions. So we're doing a couple different things. One is we're making sure that when cyclists are entering and exiting the block, that we have a little bit of extra pedestrian space off of the curb. We know there's just that natural inclination of pedestrians when you're going across the street, you kind of you inch towards the roadway and step off the curb. So in our designs, we're really looking to make sure that there is a little bit of space when you step off the curb, but then also a little bit of space between the bike lane and the vehicular lane. So trying to have a good feel and response to what we know is a natural tendency of pedestrians. Another key move will be to create these little hugs along the bike lane. So they are moments of kind of traffic calming for cyclists, and really encouraging cyclists to use Broadway more as a bike boulevard. We have a really kind of good network framework that continues to grow in this area, but really it's the avenues that are the protected bike lanes for the higher speed cyclists, the commuters, folks who are going longer distances. We really see Broadway as local, not only for pedestrians, but for cyclists and vehicles. So trying to build into the design as much of that kind of self-enforcing slow speed. But I also think your point about education will be key, and that's definitely something we can think about in greater detail with the bid, and have folks out there. So as we're ramping up implementation, we can also have a presence on the ground and be talking to folks and really trying to reinforce good behavior.
Next up is Nancy.
Do you have any plans to just remove all vehicular traffic from Broadway? Is that where we're going with all of this? It seems as though the more, and the reason I say that is it seems as though the more bike lanes we add, the more congestion, the more conflicts we are coming up with cars and bikes. And so I'm wondering if that is in a long-term plan of maybe 10 years down the line.
So that's a great question. It is one that our Broadway vision plan is really in response to. One of the biggest challenges is navigating, wanting to make a really robust pedestrian priority public realm, but also needing to acknowledge that there's a tremendous amount of density and building development and critical services, both to service businesses and residences, as well as serve communities of people with disabilities. So I think what we are really trying to achieve with our Broadway vision plan is a comprehensive redesign of the corridor, while still building in those kind of very key operational and accessible vehicular uses that we need. I think there's always room to push beyond what we're presenting now, and that's been we have had such a great opportunity of time along Broadway to see how the building uses and the community has changed over time and be responsive to that. So I think we are very much open to evolution, but I think even in some of our most kind of fully closed plazas, we still need to account for emergency vehicular access and sign trucks and things like that. So I think we're always thinking at the end of the day, very strong pedestrian and bike priority, but acknowledging that we need to also be thinking about access and service.
My second question is really has to do with an observation. I'm noticing lately that all the bike lanes are two-way, even though they're only marked one way. This is becoming a real problem. And I've recently seen several crashes of two bikes going in the opposite direction, crashing. So I think this board is very concerned about enforcement. And actually the accident that occurred had to do with lack of enforcement, where someone on the bike was actually running a red light. So enforcement has become a problem and there doesn't seem to be a good solution yet. Do you have any ideas you can share with us on that?
So that's a really important point. I think one of the things we're really trying to do here is acknowledge the fact that there is two-way cycling demand. And so given the whole universe of enforcement and its challenges, we think that one way to chip away at some of the challenges with cycling is to formalize and acknowledge that two-way cycling is a demand and try to design and make it as safe and formalized as possible. So that's a big part of the approach that we're taking here. But I don't know if anyone from our Borough Commissioner's office wants to chime in with any additional thoughts on enforcement.
Thanks, Emily, and thanks, Nancy. And we have previously explained where the city is, both NYPD on enforcement, DOT trying to change the streets through engineering and education. It's a challenge, and Nancy will continue to work with the board on problem areas for sure. But at the end of the day, when we are providing greater infrastructure to cyclists, to pedestrians, we're seeing increased safety, reduction in crashes, and most importantly, crashes that result in fatalities and serious injuries. So I hear you, and we have heard you on other projects, but the answer here is to make sure we're continuing to build out the networks and we're continuing to educate all users of the roadway.
Thanks. Yeah, one of our committee members who couldn't make it tonight had a couple questions. One was particularly about that enforcement. One was also about the measurement of these accidents. I believe that according to DOT, I'm not sure the source used. I'm not sure when exactly he's quoting, but apparently DOT identified that 10 pedestrian deaths in 2021 had been caused by cyclists. Now, I guess I'm curious about a couple things. Number one, if this crash did turn out to be caused or initiated by, for example, a cyclist running a red light or improperly crossing or using a roadway, would this incident be considered caused by a cyclist? And I guess number two, how do those statistics play into either the road configuration changes or enforcement that you attack? Obviously you've mentioned that, like, one of the major improper ways that a bicyclist could use, the road is by going the wrong way down a bike lane. If you're introducing a two-way bike lane that, provides an outlet for that, provides an actual way or a substitute for that misuse and presumably reduces the misuse. I'm curious how those statistics play into whatever specific enforcement around bicycle usage, such as in this particular incident, you might be trying to address. I guess this could be for Emily or Ed.
Hey, Emily, let me start and feel free to add on. The department certainly uses data and crash statistics, as well as input from community boards and residents on where to identify potential projects and upgrades. And if you see our Vision Zero map available online, you can see the locations of the city that have experienced the most crashes. And it does kind of dovetail with where we've then tried to put in resources to pursue more pedestrian safety upgrades, bicycle lanes, and other safety enhancements. EJ, I would want to go back to my colleagues who work every day on the crash data and coordinate with NYPD. I think to your specific question about how they would classify this accident or this crash or similar crashes. So Kimberly and I will follow up with you on that piece. But because I honestly don't know, and I don't want to give the wrong information. But our overall efforts are guided greatly by data.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And am I missing any particular? I feel like this is another question I might ask before, but I'm wondering whether the reconfiguration in the expanded pedestrian space and the two-way bike lane and the pivots introduced in the bike lane by the curb cuts and the expanded pedestrian space slowing down cyclists. Among those different effects, am I missing any other effects by which this redesign could theoretically, be helping to enforce proper usage of not just slower speeds by vehicular traffic, but also proper usage by the bicyclists? Are there any other effects of the redesign that I'm not covering there?
I mean, I think that's pretty comprehensive. We also are looking at in these little pinch points for cyclists having some rumble strips. I think that is something that it's still a kind of a treatment that is in development, and we're not sure just how much of an impact that has on slowing cyclists. But again, I think we're trying to use kind of as many of our tools as possible here to try to create a larger effect of slow speeds for bikes.
Okay,
and just to add,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, EJ. To add to that, and I'm happy to send over some more information, we are separately pursuing the Better Barrier program, which is a pilot project to think about how we can reinforce our protected bike lanes using a variety of treatments. I think we famously have used Jersey barrier as the commissioner began his tenure, but we're now using other treatments. And I think one thing we would want to see over time is how do those barriers not only protect cyclists from intrusions by motor vehicles, but how does that increase safety and comfort change cyclist behavior? Because if you're in a space and it's not only painted green, but it's fully protected from a vehicle, are you just more comfortable in staying exactly where you want to be? And I know that's something that we'll be tracking.
Okay, thanks. And again, just trying to be comprehensive here and understanding all the efforts that you're covering tonight. Obviously, you've talked a lot about design and incentivizing good behavior and disincentivizing bad behavior and doing that via design. Are there any explicitly enforcement efforts that are not pieces of the design, but pieces of enforcement and education specific to more signage or more enforcement or that you can speak to, or pretty much all your focus is on design at this point?
Specific to Broadway, I think we're really focusing on design, and we will of course work with our colleagues at the police department as we advance proposals and then ultimately implement some improvements. More globally though, the city scored a great victory last month when the state legislature passed an expansion of the speed camera program and its hours of operations. Those will now be, after it takes effect, in operation 24/7. We want more ability to enforce dangerous driving behavior via speed camera, via camera programs, and we'll continue to work with our elected officials and community boards and others to try to get that done. And then, that will really help reduce speeds generally. As it relates to cyclists, continuing those education efforts, continuing to work with PD on hotspots, that's what our concentration is on.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Nancy, I don't know if your hand is still up from before or whether you have a new question. Okay, go ahead.
My observation is that this accident that occurred recently, if the pedestrians were protected with solid bollards, that cab could never have gone into the pedestrian stream. And I think we need to start thinking about protecting sidewalk pedestrians with bollards that will prevent cars from going up onto the sidewalk when they're swerving to miss a biker. What do you think about that?
I can just, from our experience, bollards are incredibly complicated elements to install. I think generally understanding that there is so much infrastructure under our streets. They also involve a pretty significant capital reconstruction project. So certainly we want to be thinking about tools, to your point, that can be creating barriers that we can be doing kind of more of, and as part of these what we call interim projects, because these projects do have such a big impact on safety and kind of in enhancing the public realm. So I do think we have tools like our planters and granite blocks and things like that, where we try to, again, balance creating a bit of a buffer while also still allowing permeability for people to move through and circulate through the spaces. But you know, bollards is certainly a tool in the toolkit. It just comes with some more substantial and significant considerations.
And Nancy, the city's current policy for bollards is to place them at areas that NYPD designate at high risk for security attacks. You know, I think Emily's last point about permeability for pedestrians is one that's often overlooked when we're adding different types of equipment, such as bollards, onto narrower sidewalks, particularly on Broadway, where you have a high volume of pedestrians. You might get some negative impacts from those types of you know, pieces of furniture. But that's how we all balance the needs of particular locations, and we'll continue to work with PD on what type of security infrastructure might be required along Broadway in an interim stage for this work, and then, you know, should this become a capital project in the future.
There's nothing more negative than someone losing their leg. I think we need to think about that.
Okay. Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Emily and Ed. We'll see no more questions from the committee. We'll throw things to members of the public, but I do just want to frame things a little bit for members of the committee before we proceed. Obviously, as we've sort of clarified, there's a couple different things here. DOT is clearly focused on redesign, and they've come back to us in an expedited fashion this month to expand on this Broadway vision plan that we have heard a considerable amount in the past, and that we appreciate getting this interim update for. Obviously, substantially in the context of these ongoing updates, we are on record as endorsing the overall Broadway vision, and I don't anticipate us, you know, taking any action to change that position tonight. So we appreciate this update and updates for the modifications, particularly in light of the recent news. But you know, I don't at this point anticipate us taking any kind of position tonight that alters our current position on the Broadway vision. The one other thing I want to highlight is that outside of the realm of design, which is really DOT's realm, DOT alluded to the fact that they continue to work with NYPD. The Transportation Environment Committee has for many months at this point, almost a year, probably over a year, maintained and had a periodic conversation going around enforcement. You know, I think we know at this point that it's not something that DOT has a lot of control over, but it's something that we hope to arrive at some sort of precedent or policy prescription as a committee, and thus as a community board, on in the coming months. That is something that we continue to have discussions on periodically. It's probably something that we will revisit shortly after the summer hiatus to try and finalize our policy prescriptions and our recommendations to the agencies that do handle enforcement. Those will be, at least to my estimation, separate discussions that we'll have probably in August and September. So I sort of want to clarify that there are two different facets of this, and we try to make sure that those different recommendations for both design and enforcement are targeted to the right agencies that have those authorities. That's just framing that I wanted to provide for the committee. With that, and again, understanding that today we're talking to DOT and we're talking about their Broadway vision design, more or less, I will throw things to members of the public who have their hand raised. Again, we're trying to be very efficient here. I would ask you to limit your comment to 2 minutes. I'll try to keep the timer going and try to be as germane as possible. With that, we will start with Samir.
All right, thank you for letting me speak. I set my own timer, so I'll make sure to stop. Yeah, and I just want to say I just came from a protest related to the crash on Broadway between 28th and 29th to demand more equitable street allocation. So I'm a little bit riled up from that. So apologies for my interruption earlier. Lots of adrenaline and nerves acting up. I'm commenting as a member of the public. I walk and I bike around here all the time. Broadway was once my relaxing walk in the middle of the day, maybe not anymore after this horrific crash. But I just came from that protest, and I want to make it clear that a lot of people, like hundreds of people, really want to expedite these changes, and we want the DOT to dream bigger. Broadway, in my opinion, is a scar on the grid of Manhattan, and we should honestly fully demap it and give it to bikes and pedestrians. And I want to make it clear that the crash occurred because a taxi hopped the curb and maimed multiple people. Without the taxi, there would be no crash. The cars are the problem, and we need to address that. We need less car infrastructure, not to build around them. We need to remove them entirely. The things I'm excited about two-way connection. I'm excited about the plaza between 26th and 27th. We wouldn't ask pedestrians to go one way on a sidewalk, and the idea that we do that for bikes is, in my opinion, a little bit silly. We should have as many two-way bike lanes as possible. I'm a little bit worried about the contraflow, the two-way bike lane, the way it's designed. When other cities have contraflow bike lanes, they fully separate them instead of having them both be in the middle of the street. I'm also not sure what's going to happen when someone's going up the street and then they get out of the two-way bike lane section and they get to, 21st. What happens? They're going the wrong way now. I'm also worried about the very wide chicanes. We have them between 22nd and 23rd, and cars go incredibly fast down that stretch. I'd like them to be very much narrowed. And for the committee, I'd really encourage the committee to write a letter or a resolution in support of this expedited treatment. And I don't expect us to change our position, but it would be good, in my opinion, to reaffirm our commitment to the proposals that they're making. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Samir. Next up, we'll have David Kalis.
Hello, thank you, EJ. My name is David Akalis. I'm president of the West 50s Neighborhood Association. Two of my board members are also on the T&E committee, and they asked me to speak tonight, Suzanne Johnson and Joel Maxson. They're both avid bicyclists, just so you are aware of that. I have a membership of 600 people in our group, and every one of them has been concerned about the bike situation, as well as every town hall meeting I've been to and every police precinct meeting I go to. The number one concern, of course, is crime. The number two quality of life concern is the out of control bike. And by bike, I mean e-bikes, motorcycles, scooters, unicycles, every crazy thing that's out there right now. The streets and sidewalks are toxic. People do not feel safe walking on their own sidewalks. Now, there's been over $100 million spent on bike infrastructure in terms of lanes and not education, but support and bike lanes. And your biking partner in the biking share business, City Bike Lift, they're boasting about more and more stations they're putting up, but they have not, and the city has not spent 1 cent on education or enforcement. This has to change. I've spoken with all our community council board members, Brewer, Botcher. I've spoken with the borough president, Mark Levine's office. I've given them things they could do to educate that we could do tomorrow that wouldn't cost anybody. I had a long talk with Colleen Chattergoon about what can be done to educate people just for a start. But making Broadway 2 lanes for bikes, you're just giving up. If there was been education and enforcement, it could be a one-way bike lane. And Samir, let me tell you why 2 lanes doesn't work, because bikes and everything along with our vehicles, by law, they have to follow the flow of traffic. That's the law. Now, if we want to change the laws, that's fine, and that'll shut me up. But something really has to be done on this. I live on 56th Street and Broadway. Every time I go out into the street, it's absolutely insane. 2-lane bike lanes in the street, that's one thing. The bike sidewalks are 2 ways. I've got motorcycles zipping by me back and forth on the sidewalks. I've seen motorcycles, the mini motorcycles, racing on the subway platforms. And now all these motorcyclists are taking their motorcycles in and out of the subway elevators. There's got to be enforcement. It's got to happen. It's got to happen tomorrow. There's no more excuses. We can't say this plan will be better, in a few months, or that the biking community will take care of themselves. They haven't. They've had years to do it. And I'm sorry for my 2 minutes going over. But thank you. I'll leave my information where you can get in touch with me. But this has to change. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next up will be Charles.
Hi. Yeah, I'd like to make sure that the audio pedestrian signals will be installed along Broadway, especially since there's going to be traffic calming measures. Also, I'd like to add that I and my home attendant have nearly been hit by bikes in this neighborhood plenty of times when we've had the right of way when crossing the crosswalks, and it is very, very scary, and that happens quite often during the week when we're out going to various stores. Also, I'd like to ensure if the e-bikes, especially the 3 companies that want to increase their presence in New York City, will definitely be using the technology that will geo-block the bikes from mounting the sidewalks, and also be having a special sound to to alert people who are blind that they're coming, because I believe a member of DOT did mention that could be a possibility at a National Federation for the Blind New York chapter meeting. And maybe that technology could be used to have a speed limit so that these e-bikes can't go over a certain speed, because I believe cars are not meant to go over a certain speed in the city, and maybe even some sort of measure like that. So it's very scary, and I hope something can definitely be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. You mentioned a couple different things there. The one that it seems to me does very much fall under DOT's purview is the audio signals. I'm curious, Ed or Emily, if you just want to respond to that. As you reassess, as you redo these blocks, is there any thought being given to the installation of the audio signals for pedestrians?
So EJ, I think it's a little premature to say exactly what signal infrastructure might be needed to be changed or installed as part of this work. Longer term, the city is pursuing a plan to upgrade all of our 14,000 plus intersections to be equipped with APS. I can offline see where we are in Broadway. And again, if we wind up changing some signal design as part of this project, then that might impact our schedule. So it's a great question. And Charles, I've noted down your other comments. I'll talk with our accessibility coordinator on some of the other ways in which we're working with the disability community on these treatments. But we'll include that as an update during our next presentation.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Next up will be Miriam Fisher. Miriam, you can unmute.
Yes.
No, it looks like Miriam has lost the ability to speak. Miriam, you can unmute again.
Okay.
Now
again.
we can hear you.
Okay.
Yep. Now we
I
can
saw
hear
the name Ed Pinkar and I thought, I know that name. I had the same conversation at Community Board 4 at the Transportation Community. I live in Chelsea. And March 2021, a year and a half ago, the Transportation Committee wrote a letter addressed to DOT Ed Pinkar, which is why the name, suddenly struck me. And one of their suggestions was to look at the configuration of the traffic lights on 8th and 9th Avenue and possibly be sure they're in sync. And also, I forgot the exact name for it, the lights that would give priority to pedestrians and bikers so that bikers aren't so antsy and get a head start. There's been no answer. I brought it up again months later, no answer. And I was at a community meeting with the police department, 10, and they also, again, called DOT. So I'm asking you to address the issue about looking into the lights as one of the avenues of pedestrian safety. And it came up as a discussion in terms of pedestrians being frightened by and hit and sometimes killed. It happened in Chelsea by the bikers. I was the one who raised it, but they wrote a letter March 2021.
Thanks, Miriam. We can see if Ed wants to respond to that.
We could talk offline because that's in community before. I have spoken to the chair of CB4's transportation, co-chair of the transportation committee. There was, I think, there was some confusion over the light sequence at 8th and 25th, which was what the original letter had requested. But call my office and we could talk some more.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed. Obviously, any kind of anything related to the synchronized lights on 8th Avenue would has some overlap with Community 5 district as well. Okay, our final comment is from Catherine Nessel.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate DOT being here and expediting the vision for Open Broadway and pedestrianizing Broadway. I am disappointed that the conversation has focused largely around the perceived danger of cyclists, given that the reason why we have this meeting today is because of the horrific crash of a taxi that has cost multiple people their limbs. Dozens of people had to pull the taxi off of, the people that were pinned against the side of a building between 28th and 29th. It's just horrible to think about. And traffic violence is really plaguing Broadway in New York City in general. I would like to fact check a statistic brought up earlier. Someone mentioned that 10 pedestrians were killed by bicycles last year. That's not true. It's 10 pedestrians were killed by bicycles between 2006 and 2020 in New York City, according to DOT data. I'm happy to share that data as well, if someone would like it. In that same time period, 2,116 pedestrians were killed by motor vehicles. So I think that the real issue that we should be tackling here is the danger that motor vehicles, cars, present on our streets. And I think that it's very important. It's the 25th to 27th section of Broadway looks excellent with the DOT design, having that two-way bikeway and plaza space. I do agree with what Samir mentioned earlier, that it would be very helpful to have a dedicated bikeway between 27th and 29th, because I worry about the danger of bikes going into oncoming traffic on the shared street that is a little bit too wide. I think that shrinking the shared street just to the width of a car so that essential traffic could go through would be best for now. But again, in the long term, I think that there is enough capacity on other avenues that Broadway should be fully pedestrianized and made into a pedestrian and bike oasis in New York City that would bring so much vibrancy and business to CB5. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you to all the members of the public in attendance for your comments. With that, we'll go briefly into our business session as a committee. As I said earlier, and with all due respect to some of the suggestions that we heard during the comment period, it's really not our board's precedent to issue a letter or resolution simply repeating ourselves. our position on the record is our position on the record, and we continue to give it our full support. And our board office is happy to send along existing resolutions of support. But I don't really see the utility of issuing a resolution simply reiterating a past position. That continues to be our standing position, and in this case, it's our support for DOT's Broadway vision, which we heard a lot more about tonight, which is a fairly transformative step to shared streets with two-way bike lanes, larger pedestrian plazas, and various design steps like the rumble strips and like the direction changes that would have the effect of expanding pedestrian space and further slowing down both bike traffic and further disincentivizing car traffic. From my personal experience, shared streets tend to have a dramatic effect on reducing that kind of traffic, and the reconfiguration of the redirected traffic tends to dramatically slow down that car traffic as well. So these to me are positive design changes, and I'm appreciative of DOT shifting their plans so quickly in response to this incident and conditions on the ground. So I think, as I said, we have an ongoing discussion around enforcement, and I think there's going to be an actual position that we can take as a committee and a board on enforcement directed at the appropriate agencies over the coming months. Right now, it does not seem to me like there is any kind of new position to take on the Broadway vision or the designs that we've seen tonight, given our standing positions and given the fact that DOT has told us they're expediting it on this particular stretch, which I think is appropriate given this. So it does not seem to me like there's an action to take tonight. If anyone on the committee has a comment, happy to hear that at this point. Yeah, Nancy.
Well, in light of this accident and the number of people that were injured, I feel that the board transportation committee should issue some kind of letter. Now is our moment to make a greater impact because of this horrific accident. We could add all the things that we've been doing all along, but I think to miss this opportunity to not comment on this accident we would be remiss.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Janice?
I would definitely agree with that sentiment. And then in addition to that, I do feel like there could be an opportunity to ask for more. I think in particular, I do appreciate the quick response, but just having all these potential solutions thrown out there, I do wonder about the effectiveness of that. And since, this is a design project, I would imagine that there are metrics associated with each of these proposals that if they aren't already in place, that we can advocate for as well.
Thanks, Janice. Tristan.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Nancy. I really do think we should do something, either a letter or a resolution. I think, given the public attention on this, we're supposed to be speaking for the public, so I think we should do something.
I just want to clarify, we actually, according to our precedent, really cannot do a resolution because this was an update on our agenda and it was not an application or a formal proposal coming before us with very much notice. A resolution would definitely really not be appropriate. One thing that I think we could do is perhaps a brief letter framing our existing position on the Broadway vision and saying our support of the Broadway vision stands. We endorse the slight reordering of prioritizing this particular stretch of the Broadway vision, given recent events, and reissuing and having our board office reissue that resolution, with the appropriate emphasis, I think is something that I could get behind. And Maki, having just put down her hand, might be a vote in favor of that.
Thanks, EJ. That was the suggestion I was going to make, was to reissue it. I think that would be a stronger position, showing that we have consistently had the same position as opposed to appearing reactionary.
I think a short framing letter for our existing resolution would be appropriate here. Yeah, Nancy?
I just think we need to say that we are greatly disturbed by this event, because this is not, we've been pounding this drum for, I don't know, 5 years. And we don't seem to be getting the traction that we need. This accident was due to lack of enforcement. Not that I have a solution for enforcement. I understand all the reasons why the bike laws cannot be enforced, but this was due to a lack of enforcement. And so now people have been seriously hurt because lack of enforcement, and that's on the city.
I certainly agree with that. And we've been singing that song for years, definitely. And we hope to have something new to add to it in coming months via our enforcement team and developing an enforcement policy that we can submit to the appropriate agencies. I have no problem with our framing letter here saying that we were disturbed by this event, we're motivated by this event, to reissue our resolution to say that we support the Broadway vision and we support the prioritization of this stretch.
And we are begging for enforcement measures that still do not exist after 5 years.
I think we just add that as a postscript onto everything we write at this point. Yeah. Okay, so I think that brief framing letter and reissuing our Broadway vision policy is an appropriate step to take here. I'm perfectly comfortable asking our board office to do that. Any other final comments? Again, because it's just a letter and a reissuing of a resolution, that's not a vote or anything. And if there's consensus for that, that's how we'll move forward tonight. All right. Well, not seeing any other comments from the members of the committee, I want to thank all the members of the public who made comments. I want to thank everyone from DOT who came and particularly for being agile and coming to see us on short notice, knowing that this was going to be a major issue for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, EJ, and we will be back soon.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much to DOT. I believe that our final issue of the evening will be to put out a call for new business. Is there any new business by members of the committee or the public? Yeah, Charles.
I was wondering if there could be some sort of enforcement about, so something we could do about companies that own more than maybe 2 vehicles that are taking up valuable parking space that could be given to residents or other New Yorkers. I noticed that CUCS Home to Streets program, even though that's a very important program in the city helping the homeless, are having a fleet of their cars along Madison. I just feel like it's 10 or so vehicles along there when they could easily use a parking garage is taking up valuable space that can be given to other people in the community.
Okay, thanks, Charles. That's an interesting question. I don't know of any existing regulations around that, or what it would take to pursue a new regulation around that, probably at the city council level. Probably something worth looking into, which maybe our board office could take a look at and see if there are any existing regulations around that. But thank you for bringing it up. Okay, not seeing any other new business, we'll adjourn the meeting for the evening. Thank you all for your patience. Thanks for rolling with our expanding agenda for the evening, and particularly in light of the events of last week, and for your participation. Without further ado, I'll let everyone go. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks,